advisory network, but it's like, maybe I just call it proposing the TEC advisory network. But it's like, it's a proposal that is happening. It's not like a proposal that we vote on and then does everyone agree that this is what we do? So it's not that kind of proposal. So I'm trying to distinguish it. I'd love some feedback on that, distinguishing between like, hey, here's something the TEC is doing versus, hey, do we want to take a cultural vote on this? Which I don't think we want to do, actually.
Um, for me, at least for me, it's introduction, like introducing the TCAN is a good way to do it, maybe the best way to do it, just because um, depends on how you say it, but TCAN it's more like an extension of how the coordination team has decided to that's best to work, and we as a working group of the TC have some agency towards how we want to work. So I guess that should be good enough, and maybe even have it added on our proposal. So like it's implicit when you vote on the proposal, you're also sort of um, also agreeing to us incorporating the TCAN.
Very interesting. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that is very like perfect phrasing. I have to write it down. Cool. Okay, and is there anything else we want to raise on this? I'll send it again when it's final. I'll, clear out some of the comments and sound it out again. But yeah,
Uh,
Nate brings an interesting problem about like how the process for creating specialized, how would they be formed? The answer is like I don't know that we're gonna like map out everything exactly. Thinking about this a lot, and I sent a tweet this morning, which was like there's something called Ostrom's law, which was a basically ironic law that states that resource management or resource allocation in practice can also work in theory because there's this idea of like getting exactly the right thing on paper, but then when you're doing it, it's not actually what works. So I think a lot of this is like, here's our initial thinking and ideas, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be right the first time, but it's like, will get us to the next point where we need to be. And so I don't exactly know how the additional advisory groups will be formed. One of the things that I really liked about the way the Active Inference Scientific Advisory Board does it is they take the legwork out of like going and finding people. They just they open they have a form which is linked in the document to invite people to ask to join. I have the time and I have this expertise, and the form is very simple. It's like, why do you want to join? What can you contribute? What do it's like, but it's like it allows people to show their interest and then share just a few things about why they think that they would be bring value to that team. So I like the idea of, and this was something that came out of one of my chats with, or one of my, in the margin text chats with Isaac. I like this idea of being like, we really need some help on this topic. We'd like to form an advisory group. And here's the, 3 people that we think, or 1 or 2 people that we think would be good. There's a form open for people to propose to join. Some sort of format like that, I think might be successful, but also not end up being really high overhead for any particular person already, with quite our plates full in the TC.
yeah, I guess just very quickly. Well, first of all, hey Libertad Phoenix. We're just having a team meeting. Feel free to listen and even jump in if you think you have something to say. Um, but I was just going to say that I guess the very exact same reason that we are doing the TCAN is to get advice. So I guess on the formation of additional groups, that's something that they can also wait in and just iterate and see how it's best to have these groups come together.
Yeah, and the other thing. So first of all, I really resonate with that idea of emergence. Allow things to emerge naturally over time, and don't try to like over plan things. So I think that's good strategy. Um, and I think the other opportunity we have to test this out in this current funding period is with the grants program. So we actually need to bring in a handful of people to help give advice on the criteria for the grants program and also to help with the evaluation process. So that's like a really pragmatic little test that we can do to actually see how we spin up a little cluster of advisors around a particular set of expertise.
Yeah, I mentioned those two specifically additional advisory groups that might be good candidates, especially like the token engineering advisory group. And I did mention that as like, some examples of the types of advice this group would be sought for, or like fine tuning the required criteria and evaluation of TE projects. And also the other example is, what if we close the arbitrage opportunities of the ABC to TEC alone? Or make restrict permissions to the primary market maker to the TEC loan and sort of push traffic to the secondary market makers. I feel like these are two great examples that are like we could kind of use that advice now and so I think the token engineering advisory would be like the next to form. And then the reputation advisory, we talked about this, and I got so much help from the strategic advisory team specifically, but also this idea of this, the governance advisory or reputation advisory. And, one of the first questions is like, does the TEC need to implement reputation? Like what actually would be how would it benefit the TEC if we spent time implementing a reputation system? And then if we do decide it's worth it, then what would that look like? So that would be something else, and maybe not as big priority. One of the things that Bear mentioned that really resonates with me is like this idea of reputation. Okay, yes, we have the option to do it, but we still have to figure out when not just the planning for it can happen, but then like when the execution of it can happen. And that is still doesn't I don't know that can be a priority for the TEC right now, unless there's like compelling reason that a reputation is really important for the TEC in the next, let's say, 2 quarters. So I'm not sure that's true yet, but anyway, and interesting to keep the idea open, and it will come up as we start evaluating the migration to OP, because one of the benefits of the migration to OP is that it will be possible to launch a reputation token. So it seems like, well, if it's possible, maybe we should evaluate whether or not it makes sense for the TEC to have a reputation token as well.
Yeah. One last thing, and hey Nate. One last thing, and about the TCAN as well is I think that we should have some sort of expectation, or that was part of my comment. Like we need to have some clarity around the distribution of skills um, and personas on the network, because this is like not there's not a lot of people that we can consider token engineers with enough experience. And like you said, Tam, there's not even a consensus on what a T is. So it can get out of hand very easily, in the direction of the TC, or at least this team depends on the TCAN. So we like it doesn't has to be like a hard hard thing. Like it must be 3 people with these skills. It can be more on the soft side, but there should also, I believe there must be something that dictates who can enter and under which conditions, and just making sure we protect the network, and we have enough skills and the ones that we need and all that, like the governance of the TCAN, I guess we can say.
What do you mean the governance of TCAN?
Like how do we accept people into the network, how people exit, which kind of people we accept, how, like, what's the uh, yeah, what's the criteria, like, in, again, it doesn't have to be like something hard, like hard criteria, but I personally consider expectations around that to be very important, so that we don't end up with a network that is of benefit to the TSC.
Hmm.
Like if if like if people within the T can start nominating people, and the way to add people is like some soft consensus without expectations, we could end up with an advisory network of just one technical T people, and the rest is just, I don't know, whatever it is, and that wouldn't be good for the TC.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't, the reason I think that's less of a risk is because of this sort of, the strategy advisory group or the coordination team, like they have a really tight collaboration. And so I think that the idea of, and I don't like, it was a great way to sort of walk through this is like, well, what's an example? Let's say we take the token engineering advisory. How does this group form? Well, Jeff is excited to participate in that. So it kind of seems like Jeff would be a great person. Maybe we can, have a short list of a few other people because token engineering is sort of what we know, and maybe have a short list of people that we would propose could create, like that we know are willing to do it, being the primary thing to find out, have the skill set to do it, and then we can propose those people. But I have a proposal to the forum that is sort of like, this is a group for a token, engineering advisory group is forming. If you think that you should participate, please fill out this form. And the form is going to ask you about your experience and why you want to participate and what value you think you should bring. And then I think it's mostly that group, that initial group, who kind of decide who to bring into that advisory team with them. Does that sound problematic?
No, I guess we can start with that. I would just be paying a lot of attention to that. I just think it can get out of hand very easily, but sounds good to start.
Yeah, and I think if it
Um,
starts to get out of hand in some way, like we just think that there's like, a lot of advisory groups just want, I don't know if there's any harm if a bunch of advisory groups advise, like just starting to form even on their own, because I think, this isn't something the TEC is like, okay, we need this and we're going to pay for it. And it's not a compensated role. It's sort of like a group that has it'd be interesting if there's a group that has the intrinsic motivation to form an advisory group on a particular subject that can then create guidance for the TEC on some particular matter. I mean, even like that, I think is like the worst case. Well, one of the worst case scenarios. I don't know. I guess I don't know how. I guess it's hard for me to see what can go wrong from the perspective of emerging and dissolving advisory teams,
for
specifically
me, it's
advisory teams.
about
Yeah,
for
okay.
me, it's about we are creating almost like a dual governance structure, because we have the token holders that are like giving us the money, but at the end of the day, we intend for the TCAN to be the one that governs the direction of the coordination team in some sense. And so if they suggest a direction that ends up being not the right one, we will have the DAO just spending money and not getting, just nothing like super big or super hard, but it will slowly
Yeah.
be eating the whole thing.
Yeah, and the right one is again the kind of thing like not the right one, not the right one. I think it's more a question of like malicious intent
Yeah.
versus, like if there's something like I don't look at it as a dual governance structure. I look at it as there are people that are thinking deeply about the needs in order to advance the mission of the TEC. And those are the people that are involved in the prioritization and planning of what the TEC works on. And so I think that there's certainly the accountability is to make it public and available to the wider community, especially the token holders, but not necessarily for that's not governance. Right?
Yeah.
It's you're trusting the people who are involved in um, there's a lot of trust in the coordination team's ability to execute what the plans are. I don't know. I don't think I'm expressing that well, but I don't see it as a dual governance structure. I don't think an advisory group is governing, but they are providing advice when asked.
Yeah, I was just going to say that same thing. Like, I see this as the next generation advice process, or like not the whole advice process, but a new structure for holding the advice process and opening it up. But I don't see it as governance, and I don't see it as uh, controlling the direction of things. I think it's like, we're trying to figure this out. We need some advice. We get some advice. But that advice, if it's big enough, it still has to go to the community for a vote. I think, right? Like, I guess the question is, in the smaller things that are kind of in between, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Because we don't, at least on the coordination team, we have learned over this past year or whatever, 9 months, that there's certain levels of questions that it's like just not worth taking to the community because we don't want to we don't want to get like governance fatigue. So that's the question, is like, to me anyways, is where's that line with the TCAN? Are there certain levels of things that we can just say, yeah, you know what, that's enough advice process? Just to be very concrete, let's take the criteria for the grants, the token engineering grants program. So, let's say that we end up bringing on 4 people to advise on that process. They come up with some changes to the criteria. Like, do we need to take those recommendations, that advice, to the community for a vote? That's where it gets a little bit kind of fuzzy for me. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Nate, you wanted to say something, and then we probably should move on because we have quite a few topics today.
Yeah, we can go ahead and move on. No worries.
Wait,
Do
but
you
then
want to say something, Tom?
I want to jump in
Yeah.
and want to say something. Yeah, I mean that's a great example, and I think that is where we distinguish what we want to make public versus what we want to, have approved. I wouldn't think that it would even make sense for the community to be like, yes, we approve these criteria. It's too granular, and people weren't involved in the bigger discussion and have all the nuance of the conversations that had happened. But I think it's interesting for us to say, here is the outcome. in a post in the forum. And then maybe people can debate it or not debate it, but it's like, here's what we came up with. We spent some time thinking about this, and here's what we're going to do. And you give thanks to the people who are volunteering their time. The advisory groups aren't compensated. These are really going to be people who want to give back to the community and want to see token engineering succeed and see the token engineering commons succeed. And they 100% do not have to donate their time to these kinds of questions, but they will. And, people I've spoken with will.
I feel like we should be explicit with that, though. If token holders, if they control the purse, then that's the way things happen. And decisions about what's happening in the TEC are done, but basically privately, publicly, whatever they decide to choose. And that should be explicit and saying, hey, you can control what gets funded and what doesn't, versus these are the decisions we're making.
I didn't fully understand it, though. Can you, like, when you say you think it should be explicit, how so?
That we're not going to be coming to token holders for these bigger decisions, that these decisions are going to be made in-house, and basically token holders, their role in this governance structure is to control the purse, to decide whether the coordination team, whether an advisory group, or whether an initiative gets funding or not.
But aren't we asking token holders to vote? Aren't we asking token holders to vote on the funding for the coordination team that lists out the priorities that are being worked on?
Yeah, but I mean, there are things in there that they may not support or they may support, and that dictates whether they vote yes or no. But for the most part, we're basically packaging everything into one big budget, and so it doesn't invite governance, is what I'm saying. It doesn't invite outside voices. So either we're explicit with saying this is what we're doing and dictating it that way, and you guys can say yes or no to funding or not, and then leave it at that.
I'd be interested in seeing an example of what you mean, a different way of doing it. And I feel like the point of this advisory network is to invite voices in. It is to have more perspective in a formalized structure. So to sort of, point to the people who are advising the TEC and make that public and make that part of the public record. And here are the people who are helping us make these tough decisions that have to be made.
Yeah. Let's. I want to say something, but let's move on, because I really want to have some time for the pre-planning, but also touching at least some of the other topics that we have in here. So let's try to keep the conversation, and hopefully even, I don't know, maybe just throw a few other comments. And if anyone can stay longer, like I can stay longer than the hour, but we are just scheduled for 1 hour, so that's why I'm trying to keep everything short. But if we can stay longer, we can take some of these conversations again after the hour. I'm going to go through these ones very, very quickly for the sake of time. So unless there's not like a really important comment or something like that, like if you have something important to say, just open up your mic and try to be short. But if not, I'll just be moving to the next topic. The first one is an application for the Gitcoin Citizens Round 2. This is the second time they do a Citizens Round. This is a QF round that's explicitly for what they call citizens, which are individuals that help Gitcoin in some way or another. And we thought that maybe having YGG apply as a citizen may be important in a good way to get some funding as well. especially to offset some of the payments for him. That, which, by the way, if you haven't seen his proposal, it's up on the forum. And yeah, just pretty much that. We can have him fill out the citizens round. It's on Public Goods Network, and he can probably fill it on the basis of the QF tool and being on this team helping to run rounds. Yeah, I'll open it up. 5 seconds. If not, I'm moving to the next one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The next one is just, I guess, quick check-in. The community call we scheduled it for the 20th. There's still some minor details to fix, but we should get it announced as soon as possible. So I guess that's a piece of work between Nate, Gideon, and I. Because I read your proposal, Nate. So we just have to decide whether we wanted to do it on Twitter or Discord or whatever. And then I'm assuming you're sort of more on top of what's happening in Commons. So it would be nice to get your opinion on what, when, how, where to post it. But shouldn't like that should be posted this week. And I'm opening again, counting down to 5, and if not, I'm moving to the next one.
Nate, I'll get you comments. I haven't read it yet, but I'm gonna read it today. So I'll get you comments, and then maybe we just have a little side conversation about the communications for it.
Sounds good.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, into the next one. We can chat on the DM to get like these small details down. Hopefully we can get it posted, I don't know, tomorrow. The next topic is proposing joint research between Gitcoin, the Ethereum Foundation, Radical Exchange, and the TEC. So pretty much we've been doing some experiments with QF that have gotten some level of attraction, and we are building the QF tool and all that. So I think it makes sense to use this opportunity to both create relationships with other organizations that are big on QF, but also maybe even getting some actual funding to do some maybe even deeper research on QF and QF alterations and whatnot. So this is something I've already chatted with, at least on the high level, with Gideon and YGG, of just, I don't know, just messaging folks from Gitcoin, which we are already close to them because of the feature rounds, but also try to get in touch with the EF and Radical Exchange, and if any of them or all of them wants to hop in and contribute in some form to this, we'd be very happy to. I guess more than anything, interested in seeing in getting a temperature check for the room on how we feel about this, or if there's any comments on how we should approach it. But if not, move to the next one. I'll probably get like something more down to earth on a document, but just initial thoughts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. The next one is just reviewing what I've been doing for the roadmap project structure kind of thing on Notion. Right now it's empty because I didn't want to spend a lot of time filling stuff off if it wasn't going to be helpful at all. But essentially, on the left hand, we have the project prospectus that right now it's probably going to be renamed program prospectus or roadmap or something like that. Then we have the actual roadmap board, which has so pretty much I'm dividing the project structure into. So we have, and this I'm very interested to get some feedback from you, Tam, whether today or on our one-on-one on Thursday. But So there's two levels. There's the roadmap programs in milestones on the level on the higher level, which is kind of the what we work with the TCAN to get this information, like to get guidance on where should we be heading. So that's kind of under their control in some senses. So we have like the big bucket programs, and each program will probably have a set of milestones. So in this case, we have public goods funding, which has a milestone 1x. And then the programs and milestones are connected to the projects with where is it? I had this one connected. Yeah, with the project. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because we end up getting the roadmap with some few milestones and all that, but also it's sort of a modular um, structure where at the whenever we start getting more teams to work on the TEC, all of them can be informed by the roadmap and milestones, and then just get projects based on those milestones under their domain. So, for example, this group right now is making everything, but if we end up then having the public goods funding group and then I don't know, the coordination team, there's some milestones where each group is going to is going to is going to have certain projects, very specific projects, just to be able to complete the milestones. Yeah, that's pretty much how I'm thinking about it. Again, just any feedback or comments are very much welcome. If not, I'll pass it on to the next topic. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Yeah, I
Yep.
just have a quick comment. I'm just wondering if it would be also a good idea to include as part of this structure the funding proposal itself, or incorporate it somehow. Maybe it's what you're saying, right? The milestones uh, as part of that, or I'm not sure if it's kind of like a second layer after the project prospectus, and then we have the proposal. Just for us to make sure that we are able to have that really present during the time, and we are able actually to execute and to complete on what we promised on the actual proposal, right? Yeah, that'd be the only.
That's a good comment. I I was chatting with with Gideon about this. I don't think we like really thought of funding proposals on their own, but my assumption is that the project prospectus and funding proposal are going to be either the same, or the funding proposal is just going to be like taking a portion of the prospectus for the quarter and just making the funding proposal. So at the end of the day, the prospectus should reflect the same information as in the proposal, and and of course the information on the prospectus is going to be passed down to the roadmap, projects and tasks and all that.
Yeah, just very quickly, what the way I'm seeing it is TCAN owns the program prospectus, or I think it's probably simpler to just call it the program roadmap, TEC program roadmap. They own that, and they use that to just track stuff that goes out 6 to 9 months. But then the TCAN is then working with the coordination team to then take some subset of those things and then translate that into the next funding proposal. So then that what's in the funding proposal then forms the basis of the projects and stuff that the coordination team then is committed to carrying out. Does that make sense?
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oops, that was not here. That's here. This one, I was chatting for like on the process for new projects or the best process for projects. I was chatting with Gideon. on just how do we when we want to incorporate new projects and that we have to fill out the charter or like this template and all that, like what's the threshold at which point we take the time and effort to do that, um and also questions around if we take it to the community on a vote, like when do we know that a project needs to be through governance and all that. um yeah. I don't know if that was all that, or if you want to expand a bit on it, Gideon, or if anyone else wants to throw in something in there.
No, I mean, I think this is just the same question we were asking about the TCANs. Like, at what point does the kind of operational work need to get some type of sanity check or governance check from the community as a whole? And I think that's just a kind of an ongoing process. I think TCAN could help with providing guidance on that, though.
And just my initial thinking is this is actually a great example of where token holders have to vote. The idea, like the criteria for accepting projects is maybe not quite impactful enough for the entire token holder community to have to vote on whether they approve or disapprove them. But migrating to another chain, I think, is 100% like that. In fact, requires a vote because, in fact, technically, I think it requires a vote because we would have to shut down the bonding curve and reinstate the bonding curve on another chain. But this is a great example where it's like this impacts the entire community and does need an entire community vote. Does that differentiation make it a little more clear?
Yeah, yeah. I was when I was chatting with Gideon, that was sort of my impression. Like at the end of the day, there's like as much as we care about governance, there's also the agency that we supposedly have as a team. So as long as as long as all projects we plan to do don't deviate a lot or substantially from what we proposed or promised to do on the proposals, I think we have all agency to do whatever we want. But then if it's like something both really big or um, considerably outside of what we proposed, or like technically requires a vote, then those things should go through governance. That's sort of my
Yeah, and the softgov working group worked on the like a decision making tree for like small impact, medium impact, and high impact, and when to use advice process, and when to use cultural voting, and when to use on-chain DAO voting. And so I like what you're saying, but even more than like, when in the proposal for the coordination team is the plan for what they'll be working on, and then the coordination team uses advice process to make the best decision and then to execute on it with agency. It's not as if the coordination team is like have their heads in the sand and isn't soundboarding ideas and trying to make the best decisions with input from the people that are active and participating, and even from people outside of the TEC and other networks that they're a part of. So I think that it's fair to trust the advice process, like to use an advice process and trust that advice process is working.
yeah. I agree. Um, the last one I'm going to leave for another time. I don't think it's that important. So with the 10 minutes we have left, we can jump into the pre-planning session. Uh, Sort of, I guess, just understanding what are our goals and objectives for the next sprint, so that people here can start thinking of what they want to include in their work for the next sprint. In general, there's three big categories, I guess, that we can look into. One is community activities, so like the community calls and public goods as token engineering as public good. Then we have public goods funding, which would include because the grants program and all things that are needed to do that. And then what I'm from now on I'm calling the version 2 of the TEC protocol, which includes the migration, but as we were saying earlier, there's a bigger design space or opportunity with immigration, so we may as well just um, think of it as an upgrade to the protocol, which includes immigration, a chain migration. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Like on community activities, Nate has already started doing some good work. But just for example, on next sprint is the community call with YGG. Uh, it's yeah on that's on next sprint, so we need to take care of that, and also we need to continue uh, planning and executing on that. So we would have to execute on YGG. We need to promote it. We need to plan for the next one, and we also need to keep doing planning and preparations for the other series, the public, the token engineering as public goods. That's one. On the public goods funding, there's the question which is kind of on the same point as this one, as the topic I had up there on. Well, we had usually been doing the rounds with just enough time to execute them, but now we want to get sponsors, now we want to get some advisors, so we have to both start doing the work to get there, like how just think of how we actually going to get sponsors, like Gideon has been doing the document, and also getting the TCAN, I guess, sort of ready, at least to the point where we feel comfortable asking them to do so. And then just looking at timelines, we probably need some more time in advance than usual to do the next grants round, because there's now extra work and extra steps. And finally, with the TEC protocol D2, so we have to like finally find a proper owner. I was chatting with Gideon, and I thought that I don't know if owner, but YGG would probably be a really it's a key piece to protocol V2, because it's the most technical folk on the team right now, and can probably think of and do a bunch of research around changes to the TC at the protocol level. Um, and also it's the question of I don't really know what timelines look like, but if UTAM tomorrow say we are ready to migrate, we haven't thought of anything we need to or we want to propose, like we don't have anything. So I think it's important that we get um, that we spend some resources on it.
Yeah, give me a chance to fill out the, it looks like I can even do that in here in this perspective in the project roadmap that Gideon shared. Because of course I think Gideon is always very useful, but there's a lot of the technical issues might be more infrastructure layer than so yeah. Let's I wouldn't I'll have a better idea at the end of this week instead of now about what this could look like and an evaluation of it. I just wasn't able to get to it, and I don't think I'll be able to get to it until the end of this week.
No, I mean, and that's fine. I'm not necessarily putting more work into you. I just think that us as a team should just be generally looking more on the project and just like have something ready, or even if it's not much, just start thinking about it, because we haven't thought of it at all.
Yeah, I agree. Why are we calling it protocol version 2? TEC is not a protocol. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, we have a protocol to fund T projects. That's just a name I came up with chatting with Gideon. That's doesn't mean we have to call it away, but I wanted to frame it as something bigger than immigration, because it's like, if we can do more than, it's more than just migrate the chain to chain. And so that yeah, pretty much that.
Okay, it's true. It's a lot more. There's a lot of benefit that come from the migration. But I think protocol will confuse other people because they'll wonder what the TEC protocol is, what TEC protocol V1 is.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I don't know. I'll think of another name. That was just today. And with that, we have 5 minutes left. Yay! So we can, I don't know, we can chat about pretty much anything. But now that we are here together, I'm just, interested on the planning. So if anyone has comments, whatever, around planning, these 3 bullet points are things that I was chatting with Gideon, but doesn't mean that those are the things that we must work in. So if anyone here has like other priorities and things like that, I'll be very curious to hear, and just yeah, this is just guidance. Yes.
I mean, I'll just add one thing, which is I feel like now that we are getting into this new funding period, it's a good idea for us to have rough plans laid out for all of the projects that we've got to complete by the end of this period, which is by the end of December. So I think we've got most of these, but if you look at, I mean, the best way to determine it is to look at the funding proposal that Bear posted on the forum, and then just look at all the deliverables that are there and say, okay, do we have plans for all those things? I think we're pretty close, but like incubation project, that's one that needs one. The public goods, token engineering is public goods events. That's another one, Nate. And there's the fiduciary responsibility one. We talked about this last week, but I think it's just like making sure that everybody's on board for owning those plans. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 100% on agreed on that. As part of this current sprint, I'm gonna be working on the plans for the fiduciary stewardship. So I'll probably have something more laid out for next sprint, and maybe we can start working towards those objectives, right? That are set on the proposal. But yeah, I agree with that, and just confirming my commitment to that as well.
Okay. Yeah. So if there's nothing else, I guess just as always, next week we have the planning. On Monday we have the retrospective. Check your tasks. Update the statuses, and reach out if you need any help or whatever. I'll count down to 5 once again, just to see if there's any other comments around really anything that we have gone through today. And if not, we can wrap this up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and I'll see you guys later.
Thanks everyone.
Isaac.
Thank you, Isaac.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.